Yo, what up, everybody? It's me, Trickster Shadow here. This gameplay behind me, I'm not actually playing, hands off the keyboard. This is just gameplay from BOTB. I believe this is the second round of BOTB that I played as Nurse, and this is just background gameplay while I talk about what I'm going to talk about. What I wanted to talk about today was the newest and greatest thing being discussed on DBD Twitter, and that is competitive DBD and how it's affecting the game's community, and also little subcategory of like what is an exploit in the game and what is just meta that's just exists in the game. And I considered it a pretty interesting topic to talk about. Of course, competitive DBD it seems like is always just a hot topic because people are always saying like, "Oh, DBD is not competitive. It has so many flaws. It's so unbalanced," which is true. Um, I'm not saying that DBD is perfect, uh, but it always seems like people are discussing it and putting it down. And I just wanted to make a video talking about it and talking about a lot of the grievances that people have and how much people just like put down competitive play when it seemingly really doesn't hurt many people. But of course, there are some people that are saying that it does, which is a complaint that I kind of want to dig into and try to figure out why that may be the case, why people think that that is the case. And so the recent drama with the DBD competitive is people have been talking about J flicking. And if you don't know what J flicking or DPI switching, it's something that you can do with Blight, and you can also do it with Oni a bit. But people are mostly talking about Blight for the moment. People, I haven't really seen that many people talking about Oni, and it's something to where with Blight you can turn up your DPI really high. And if you don't know what DPI is, it's basically your mouse sensitivity. You can turn up your DPI really high, and you can get hits with Blight around corners that you normally wouldn't be able to get if you had lower DPI, although that you can get it with a lower DPI. It's easier with higher DPI. But it's hits that you like normally wouldn't be able to get. And people are saying that because you normally wouldn't be able to get those hits, that they're exploits. Which is a very interesting thought. And it gets into like in my mind it gets into like what is considered meta and what is considered an exploit because we can go into like the DBD history and think about like okay, what is considered an exploit, what is considered meta, because like when DBD first launched, you could do like arrow keys Billy and you could basically have 100% mobility, is way better than any turning add-ons, and you could just down people and there's very little they could do about it. So was that an exploit or was that just part of the game's meta at the time? Or you can even go into like perks, you can go into like Wake Up when Wake Up was bugged and Wake Up affected all action speed, so you could vault faster, heal faster, do gens faster. Was that an exploit or was that just the meta? Of course, people may say that it's more of an exploit because that wasn't intended, but is that if that's considered an exploit because it wasn't intended, like the blight, he it is intended for him to turn, but is it more of an exploit or more meta because it's for people saying like it's not intended because he's not supposed to turn that much? I don't know. It is a very like murky argument, and it's one that I don't think anybody can win. I think it's just people arguing with each other, uh, kind of for the sake of arguing. It seems like, because nobody's gonna win in that situation. Because the only people that can establish if something is an exploit or if it's meta, or even though they don't really establish that it's meta, but the only people that can establish like something is an exploit are the devs. And so when people complain about things like J flicking or DPI flicking or like arrow keys Billy back in the day, or we can say like Metal Man back when it released, or even something kind of similar to DPI flicking when Billy used to be able to look in collisions and he used to be able to like look in lockers and look through walls and be able to see people. Like, was that an exploit? It's very good questions, and only the devs can really answer that. And the devs don't really seem to answer those type of things publicly. Really, the only form of answers that we get is when they nerf stuff like that. Like Bailey can no longer look through objects. They took that away, his ability to kind of like lean through objects after he's doing his chainsaw run. And so they kind of answered us in that way that that wasn't an intended gameplay feature. And so since it wasn't intended, they've patched it out. But that wasn't intended, and yet it was in the game for a long, long time. And so because it was in the game for a long time when people were using it, were they being exploitive? Like, were they being exploiting gamers, or were they just using the meta at hand? And I just wanted to talk about this and kind of like point like the mirror and say like there's so many things in DBD that are uncounterable or like don't make sense or bad in the moment, and it seems like a lot of the anger that people are directing at each other, the anger that people are directing at competitive players, saying like, oh, they're exploiting the game because they're using this mechanic, or this mechanic isn't intended. Like, why would it be intended? Like, it doesn't even make sense that it'd be intended, and yet they're exploiting it and stuff like that. Uh, whether something is exploitative or it's the meta, that isn't up to us. And the anger that people are having towards competitive players, I think the reason why they're having this anger is because it's a lot harder to get angry at DBD and behavior and the devs, because it's more of like an ambiguous kind of like sphere of people. And when people get angry at those entities, entity, haha, when people get mad at those entities, it just feels a lot more like helpless because they're just yelling into the void more so. And so I think it's a lot easier for people to pick out competitive players, like, oh, pick out this person that plays Blight a lot and they do a lot of DPI flicking, or pick out this person because they play really sweaty in comp, or pick out these people because they're playing super efficiently. I don't like people playing efficiently. I think it's very easy for them to pull those people out and say, like, these are the people that are ruining the game, or these people that are abusing this and that, because those are the people that they do try to use, like the meta that's in the game or the things that exist in the game to try to get an advantage. But those things that exist in the game, they only exist because the devs have allowed them to exist. And so, since the people that are complaining, they are tired, I guess, of yelling at the devs, they cherry pick these people that are using the things that the devs have left at their disposal, and they're getting mad at those people for things that they should otherwise get mad at the devs for. I'm not advocating for getting mad at the devs, but it seems like it's a very misdirected anger. And I can understand the frustration. I can understand the frustration of like something seeming like it's not supposed to be intended and people are using it anyways. But if you're truly mad at something for not being intended in the game and you want it to be fixed, I don't think going after random players is the right way, because it just kind of seems like people are just looking for a scapegoat. People are just looking for anything that, like, oh, like the game is as good as I thought it was, and the reason why the game is as good as I thought it was is because this group of people, this entire group of people of like different ideas, different wants, different needs. Because this group of people now exist in the game, it's not as good as back in the day, the grand old days of when I played this game and it was so much better. It's it's a very dangerous line of thinking, and very negative and very toxic. And I just and it's the kind of way of thinking that if it was in any other context, people would say like, okay, you're being kind of weird. Like like you need to kind of like chill out a little bit. Like the grand old days that you're remembering, they may not be as grand old and amazing as you believe. And it's it's something that I wish people would realize and stop perpetuating as much hate as they are, because it's not good for the game. If you have a grievance for the game, tell the devs, make a report on it, write a forum post, whatever. But just don't go after people for enjoying DBD how they enjoy it. People playing in competitive DBD, they're playing mostly against each other that are also enjoy playing competitive DBD. They're not hurting anybody. And so directing anger at those people and saying like they're the reason why, like, oh, builders are sweaty in metagame, or the reason that people are playing a certain way, or why people are using DPI flicking, it's very misdirected, and people are just playing the game that they bought. That's simply all that they're doing. They found a way that they are enjoying the game. They're playing it. They're not harming anybody. Even if you get like annoyed with how they're playing, they're not causing you any like physical harm. They're not scamming you. They're not robbing you of money. They're just enjoying the game like you're enjoying it. And so hope you guys enjoyed this. It's kind of the end of my rant. I'm sorry if it was like nonsensical or if it went around in circles. I just kind of wanted to have some verbal vomit to spewed out everywhere, to just kind of get my thoughts out there and just make a discussion, because I'm very curious to what you guys think of, like, when does something become an exploit and when does it become meta? Is it like when the devs just like don't fix it? If they just go like months or years without fixing something, is it no longer an exploit? Is it just meta? Or like when does something become like abusable, and like should we be blaming competitive players for showcasing like what's broken with the game, or like the most efficient way to do things, when they're not the ones that have their hands on the levers and gears? They're just the ones that are using the things that are presented to them. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. There's going to be more uh gameplay videos coming out soon. I just wanted to quickly record this and get it out there just as something to talk about. And I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, night, or whatever. I'll see you in the next video.